The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome and thanks for joining us here on Real Estate House Party. This is attorney Rick Carter.
Yep.
I'm joined by the king of comedy, Tony V.
Yeah, I'm right here next to you.
Hey, Tony.
Wait, we're getting to your introduction. We're already off script.
Intro.
We're already off script here.
Of course we are.
Kathy Holtshouser, the queen of the real estate. I used to say real estate paralegal world, but she's the queen of the real estate legal community at this point.
Oh,
Yes,
I
she
just
is.
I got a promotion.
You got a promotion.
Thank you. Thanks
Wow,
for having me.
Right. She's affectionately known, and you'll see why by the end of the show, as boss lady. Tony, am I right on
yes,
this?
Absolutely.
And look who we have with us. The
Wow.
broker, owner of Colonial Manor Realty out
Yes.
of Reading, Massachusetts.
Hey, Rick.
This is awesome. This is awesome.
I hope the show is as good as the opening music.
That
was
really
quite catchy,
It
wasn't
was.
it?
It was very
great.
good.
Yes.
and we should just ride with that for the rest of the show.
Yeah,
You
we
guys
should.
out there?
Hit it.
Tony, I got one thing for you.
Whenever we have a lull, we'll just cue
keep
the
playing the
music.
music.
Yeah.
I hear
There it is, right
There
there.
You're
it
in your head too? I wasn't sure if it was me.
I'm hoping I'm hearing you guys are hearing the same thing I do. Sometimes the 80s catch up with me in a big way, and I hear stuff no one else does.
Now, do you remember more of the 80s than you do of like yesterday, I bet?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. You
I
can
can't
pinpoint
remember.
where you were at the garden on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
February.
what concert, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are like that, Tony.
I
I wouldn't
think-
feel really bad about it.
I don't feel bad
Okay,
about
good,
anything,
good.
really.
All right, do
You
you
know-
feel bad about this? One of our two over here asked for an allowance for their eyebrows,
Oh, yeah.
and the
And my
second
nails.
one asked
Listen,
for
it
a,
wasn't me. There's not enough money to cover these eyebrows. Let's just
and the
say
second
that.
one asked for a clothing allowance. So
Yeah.
I'll let you
Oh.
judge who's been.
Both, right.
Yeah.
So Colonial Manor
You could
Realty.
You could just, invest in a weed whacker, and we could get it all done at once.
There you go.
Well, what about the clothing allowance?
We take care of that
Take
with
care
a
of
weed
that too
whacker.
there,
Oh,
so.
weed whacker.
Okay.
All right, now Rick Nazzaro.
Yes.
You're going to have the pressure of the whole real estate community on your shoulders today.
I can take it, Rick.
All right, you ready for this?
Yes.
You know why? Because I need you to decide and discern and to communicate with our listeners on why you should use a broker and you shouldn't be selling for sale by owner. I don't need you to a conclusion in 1 second. I'm going to ask you different questions about it.
Okay.
So the first one's an obvious one.
Yes.
You guys are involved with multiple listing services. You're involved with. You guys seem to have like a brotherhood, sisterhood. Everyone seems to know each other. It's a lot easier for you to disseminate the information out to
Mhm.
your different brokers on a house for sale as opposed to as someone who's selling on their own.
Correct. Well, I would say, Rick, the key to any successful home sale is truly it's proper packaging and then exposing what you've professionally packaged. So every property needs full exposure. It's interesting in a difficult market, one that we may refer to as a buyer's market, which it isn't right now necessarily.
Still a seller's market.
Still
Yeah.
a seller's market, but when it was a buyer's market, home sellers would tend to go right to a broker because the challenge of selling their house was a little more difficult. Now, people go to cocktail parties, they run into people in the supermarket. Oh, I sold my house in 2 days and I had 10 offers. So the implication is that it's an easy
Right.
sale. So as the market becomes a seller's market, we do find that more sellers feel they can do it on their own. However, it is actually, in my opinion, more challenging in what might appear to be a seller's
So you say
market.
packaging. So how would you? So the first step is probably one of the steps is staging a house, right?
Yes, I mean, some of us do that. Not everybody does. So, I mean, perhaps we'll talk later in the show about, how to select the right broker
Well,
for your
let's
situation.
talk about staging real quick, just so that people
Yes.
understand what that is.
Yes. Well, back in the day when I started in this business, we didn't have the tools that we have today to photograph a property as well as we can today, and to put it out there online as we do today. As a result, the buyers of today who refer and rely on those photographs, they must like what they see in order to make an appointment to view the property. And quite often, a house that is dated or perhaps cluttered or has some colors that might be a turnoff to some buyers.
Like what? Avocado.
Well,
avocado bathrooms.
Mustard green.
Mustard green. I think we all know the colors that don't go so great. So what we
Pink.
will do is we suggest to the seller that one, they have to declutter, and they'll often refer to us like, who do you have to help? We have professional home organizers or guys with trucks to come in and get rid of things.
So someone told me about a 90-day rule. If you don't use that, if you don't think you're going to use that item for 90 days, get it out of the house.
Yes,
Right.
that rule has gone from 1 year to 90 days.
Wow.
Right.
Does that go for spouses as well?
It does. Sometimes the spouse is
You'd give her 90 days?
if you haven't used is the wrong word. I'm looking for a different word
I
than
know.
used.
Now, just for our listeners.
And I'm saying it goes
Not
both
out-
ways.
not out- right.
I'm not just saying
Right.
men.
Because
for women.
sometimes the lazy boy is not just the couch; it could be the husband.
Right. I'm looking at it from my wife's perspective.
Right.
Like if you haven't moved in 90 days, you know what I mean? If they're picking up your feet to dust under you,
That's right. It's
it
time.
might be time for you to go.
It's time.
And a nice storage unit.
And
would
then
work.
what we do? We put a nice lamp, a couple of flowers in its place.
Tell our listeners
Sounds
why
good.
you got married.
Because I was sick and tired of having my own thoughts. Well,
You didn't like that one.
Right.
Okay.
Took care of that.
Yeah. Well, sit here and watch television when there's a house to be painted. I must be insane. Yeah, so go ahead.
Go
ahead.
Yeah,
I'm done. I'm done for a few minutes.
So stodgy.
Let's talk. I'm sorry.
No. So
Whose show is this? Oh, it's yours.
It's Rick
Well, you already referred to her as the boss, so I'm
Right.
listening.
you
Alright.
got to listen to her.
So-
Yes.
So
yes.
you get a lot of resistance, though, don't you? We've
Sometimes,
we've talked about this in
sometimes
the
you
past.
do. You have to be very delicate. Not every seller wants the agent to come in and say, "Well, everything here must go. It's nothing that a buyer is going to like." It's a very sensitive subject for many
Yeah.
people. I find that the longer somebody is in the house, the more attached to their things they are. So therefore, we tend to tread a little bit more delicately when we say, it's time to get rid of the 1,400 Hummels that
Right.
nobody is attracted to anymore.
Right.
Because the buyer is of a different demographic than the seller, so we try to make the house appeal to the buyer
Right.
rather than maintain the because they'll leave money on the table, Rick. If that seller is adamant about it is, my heavy curtains.
You thought he meant literally, right?
I know. I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
which
Now
open house is
Now
that
that's,
at?
that's how to stage a house.
Yeah,
Just drop money in each row.
That's right. So, but if they leave, if they don't want to do the staging process, I'll often say to them, it's your choice, but it will cost you
Right.
in the end.
So
It could
stage.
cost you tens of thousands.
Significant amount of money
Okay.
because what it tends to do, the house that doesn't present itself well online
Doesn't get a lot of traffic.
doesn't get a lot of traffic.
Right.
And as a result, when you have limited competition to purchase this property, the number is just going to be lower.
Right.
So you alluded to this. So most houses are seen before that open house. In the old days, the first time you see a house is an open house. I'd say about 95% of the houses now.
It's actually I still find it amazing how fast, as soon as I hit post, a listing that goes into MLS, it's uploaded to every other website. My phone can ring within 1 minute
Of a post.
Wow,
yeah.
that's insane, man.
It's
That's
crazy. I mean, quite often I haven't even put in, the showing instructions, or there's still things for me to do to button it up. In the phone is already ringing. There are the buyers, typically those who've lost other houses,
Right.
who are
They're on it.
online
Yep.
24/7, or they get a bing or a ping or a bell or something that comes through
So
their
photographs
phone,
are key.
I think are key.
Professional photography,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
Right, because the first time a buyer's looking at this house is either on the internet or
And you have that
Oh, your
one shot
website.
to give that first impression.
But you know what else I've seen, which was appealing to me? I'm not in the housing market right now, but one of the brokers listed on Facebook a drone around the whole neighborhood, like so you
Yeah,
could see
that's-
the backyard,
yeah.
the front yard,
Yeah.
the house. It was I think in Andover, Mass, and it looked small from the front, but it looked like there was a couple additions on the back. So
We
they,
love drones.
Yeah.
so it brings it
We
all
think everyone
around.
should have their own drone.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think we should be droned right now.
yeah,
Like there should be a drone hovering over us.
yeah. We can
Right
write
now.
about it. Yeah.
Right. And that's just for plausible deniability.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Did you do such and such? Let's go to the
Let's
tape.
check the drone.
The drone. The drone's been with me the whole time.
That's right.
I think everyone should have a drone about 3 feet over their heads at all times. Then a lot of problems would be solved.
Right.
know what I mean?
Or there's be a
Or
lot of
cars.
problems. Right. Created.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Tony, it's interesting. The absence of certain things, some buyers create their own opinion. So let's say the drones haven't taken full,
Right.
and
But
not
it's
everyone's
just
doing
a
it.
creative idea.
But once, photography now, most of us will utilize a professional photographer. If there's a listing that doesn't have a picture of a kitchen or doesn't have a picture of the yard, the buyer suddenly says that's a
There's a
terrible
reason,
kitchen.
right.
There's a hazardous waste.
Right.
next
They're
to that.
hiding
Yeah.
something.
What are they
Yeah.
hiding?
Right.
So there is that fine line of almost giving too much information,
Yeah.
but you need to give the right information. The
Well, this-
goal is to get them to come
the
see
door,
the
yeah.
house. If you give too much, in my opinion, some houses, if you give too much, the drone, the drawings, the pictures,
You might lose
why
a customer.
why come see the house?
Right.
All right,
And many
this is what
times-
I'm seeing now, where a buyer will now look at a house and say, "This doesn't look anything like
Right.
that
Because of the
photograph."
lighting
The
or
lighting.
the
Now all of a sudden,
filters.
This house looked like it was about
Right.
6,000 square feet. I pull in here, it's a 1,200 square foot bungalow. What's
Right.
going on here?
And, Rick, so that's a good point. The photographer I use, I feel, shows the property in its true light.
Okay.
Because even the most beautiful homes, when a buyer shows up, if it's not as good as the pictures, they see the glass is half empty.
Right.
I'd almost rather have the pictures be a little less perfect, good, but not perfect, because when they come, my goal is to have them even more surprised or happier to see the house than the pictures.
But on the flip side, I've seen a house.
I love when they say, this kitchen is actually better than the pictures.
Right,
look."
right. But on the flip side, though, you might do a drive-by. You see a house for sale, you do a drive-by just to see if you like the way it looks from the street. And then you pull up the pictures and you're like, wow, I didn't know the inside of the house could
Right.
be that good from the
Right,
outside
right.
pictures. So it works both ways, I
It
think,
does.
the pictures.
Is there a rule for what the percentage you show or how much of the house, or is it just a feel?
Yeah, I mean, there's a tip. Like my rule of thumb is I do try to show every room at least with one picture. Maybe if it's a giant family room, maybe 3 or 4 pictures, the fireplace, a window, something like this. So I don't like to leave anything out. And not every house is beautiful and is going to show perfect no matter
Right.
what you do. So on the other side, if I have a fixer-upper, I still want the pictures, but I want to show the negatives quite often. Because if I make it too pretty when it's not in reality, you get the wrong buyer.
Right, you get
So
it's
again,
trickery.
That's where the packaging comes into effect.
Right.
It's got to be packaged to draw the right buyer. So if I have an old heating system, a broken, or leaky roof, an old kitchen that needs to be gutted, I'd rather show that and have the right buyer.
And you have the wording, right? You have the wording down of a fixer-upper.
Yeah, if they read it, it's quite often the pictures. No
Yeah.
matter how old we get, we go back to the picture.
Right.
book.
And we're old.
Yeah, so.
I'd want to know things like, do the neighbors have dogs that bark? What time does the guy cut his grass on a Saturday morning?
Yep.
Leaf
Yeah.
blowers.
Leaf blowers. Right. That's the information. I don't care what the house looks like. I want to know
You
what
want
I'm
the
dealing.
intangibles.
Yeah, I want to know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
When's the first day I'm gonna have to start yelling at my neighbor?
Who's going to be on the deck when
Deck,
you're having
right.
a barbecue out back?
Right.
Oh, no,
right,
not the deck.
right.
No,
I
no,
didn't
no.
know. I didn't know you'd be out on the deck smoking cigars in a Speedo. Well, you should have looked at the pictures.
That's why we love when people move to right beside a ballpark and they wonder why there's kids playing in.
Well, they have broken windows
and they got
from the
broken windows
baseball.
there.
Right.
So.
Or the golf course,
Oh,
right?
the golf course.
Yeah.
There's a particular condo subdivision that I work in many times. And a buyer of one of the units I sold there had invited my wife and I for dinner. And we sat on the deck and we got in the chair and on the deck she had helmets
Oh yeah.
for us to put on.
Oh yeah.
She says,
Just in
the
case.
view. So that's when it would have been good, Tony, for her to say, look, are the guys in the golf cart, like, are they... She
How
says
close?
the balls are flying.
Right.
Oh,
right.
I've been
great.
at that golf course. I hit one there, and I said, "Oh, I hit the condo." I said, "I'm too embarrassed to go get my golf ball."
Right.
I go up there. I said, "Oh." I go up there. There must have been 300 pings on. So I'm
Of
thinking,
course,
I'm
yeah.
not the first one to be up there.
Yeah,
And
no.
how far from the out of bound markers is the house? That's what you want
Oh,
to know.
above 50 yards.
Yeah,
Yeah. Those are an
good.
impressive golf shot there,
Listen.
Tony.
My point with people who live on a golf course is, if you didn't want to see a grown man pee in the woods, why did you move here?
Wrong location. That's right.
It's not for you. What do you think goes on?
Is that on your listing sheet? If
What?
you do not want to see a grown man,
pee in the woods?
That's in the fine print.
right. Yeah. Actually, you actually made a great point there, and I wish all brokers did this, because you sometimes show the negative. This is what I see as a real estate attorney, Reading, Mass, Londonderry, New Hampshire, Carter Real Estate Law. At the walkthrough, all of a sudden someone says, "Geez, there's a huge stain underneath that rug. I want compensation for that." And the kind of the rule of thumb is, if that was there during the home inspection, you can't start negotiating that during the walkthrough.
Or if it was there when you, so when you bought, when you initially
put your offer in and all that.
what your point is the walkthrough is not a negotiation anymore.
Correct.
Because you're already in a contract.
Absolutely.
You can't plan when a murder's going to happen. They just happen.
All right, Tony has another good point there. We're hitting them all here. Another good reason to have a broker is you guys might be more privy to disclosure laws in the particular state you're in.
Oh, definitely.
And when we don't have to go through all the disclosure now, maybe we'll have a separate show for that. But do you have to disclose there's a murder in there in the property? Do you have to disclose there's a suicide? Do you have to?
Or there might be a murder.
Or there might be.
There's always the possibility of a murder.
Now, when is this being taped? So if we see something going on in Charlestown.
Right.
So a buyer wants to be particularly careful of buying directly from a seller. And there are many who won't. I mean, I have some buyer clients who say, there's a house on ABC Street. It's not represented by a broker, but do you think you could arrange to get us in there? So sometimes we go directly to the
So then you're acting as a buyer's agent.
In that case, I'm acting as a buyer's agent, and therefore I can ask all the right questions to encourage my buyer to either make an offer or not, based on what we find out.
We're gonna have a separate show on buyer's agent.
We could have a separate show on every one of these points.
Yes,
Well, that's a 3-hour subject.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
This is, you know what I like in this show right now?
Yeah.
It's like, remember when you're a kid and you'd get the little boxes of cereal?
Yeah.
The tiny ones?
Yeah.
There'd be like 12 of
That
them.
you can open up
You
and
open
drink.
up and you take the ones you want. And you go,
As a
oh,
kid, I still get that.
well, good. I didn't know if they still made them or not.
You know I was
But,
mature yet.
you'd be going Fruit Loops and Apple Jacks, and then you'd get the Raisin Bran.
Oh, the one you want to throw up.
Yeah, you toss that
Yeah.
It's like this is the way the show works.
I was wondering where you were headed with that.
You take this, you take this. Yeah, I didn't need that one.
You leave that out.
I didn't need that.
Has anything we said is the Raisin Brand?
Not yet.
Okay,
Not
all right,
yet.
all right,
No,
good.
Special K. What's
Special
the worst?
K.
Right.
What's the worst?
Some of the
Rick,
worst. The checks.
one thing I'd like to mention, if there are any sellers listening, is because sometimes we get the call a month later if they haven't sold the house. And I'll often ask, what was the feedback you got from some buyers?
That's another great point. If you're selling on your own,
Well, this is what I
ahead,
find
go ahead,
hysterical
go ahead.
because they
Let
all
him
say it.
finish. Let him
They
finish.
all-
We shouldn't fight so early.
So
no,
in
we're
this
on
podcast.
video now.
They'll say, Rick, I must have had 50 showings, and everyone loved the house, yet I didn't get an offer.
Right.
Well, Mr. Seller, no one is going to say to the seller,
Right.
I hate your
That's
kitchen,
You have a
exactly
dumpy
right.
your
house.
basement smells,
exactly.
there's a hole in your roof. They'll tell me. They're not going to tell you.
Right.
Plus the fact they're uncomfortable with looking in a closet, opening a
Well,
cabinet.
because the seller's following
The seller
them around,
is
right?
usually
Right.
that seller is like breathing on you.
Yeah.
Right.
I hate that the guy who wants to sell his own house is on you like that.
And listen, it from a financial standpoint, it seems like it's a good idea, right? Just to hear
To
me
them,
out.
it seems
It
that
seems
way,
like
but
so.
it never
Another great
is.
point. Do you actually save the commission
Never.
if you sell on your own.
If anybody saves the
Right.
commission, it's the buyer.
Well,
Correct.
let's make that
Yeah, so
distinction.
explain
So a seller thinks that they're selling saving $20,000. What they're giving up is
The service
more than
and the
$20,000.
And the buyer will usually say, "You're not paying your commission,
So
I'll
let's
give you
knock that off.
$580."
Yes.
So it's usually the
Exactly.
buyer who gets that.
The buyer gets the break. The seller has poorly exposed
This is
their
a
property.
good group of people we have here.
Yeah,
we
know
So
things.
it's
We know
really
things.
it's really an example of being penny wise, pound foolish.
Pound
if you will.
foolish, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And let me ask you this from the seller's point of view.
Yeah.
Right? You think you're saving money. But people go into that thinking like, well, there's no broker,
Right.
so I'm
Right.
gonna
Exactly.
Nick
So
on
they
time.
offer
expect
them
Yep.
less.
right. They
Correct.
expect
Right.
that to be
Right.
knocked
Where
down.
they already got a number in their head,
Right.
That's right.
And
Whereas
so the
you
buyer
probably-
truly makes out in that.
Well, you
arrangement.
probably have stats on you probably getting above asking price. I imagine that's a stat they ask you
Yeah.
when they're saying, "I'd like you to list the my house." What is your stat?
Well, I think a smart seller should ask the question of any broker they interview. One, how many homes do you list in the area? What's your experience, that kind of thing. But then, what is your sale price to list price ratio?
right.
Because there are some brokers, I hate to say, some new brokers, dying to have a listing.
Do you want to mention
what
names
we
at
call
all, or-
what we call it is, they may buy a listing. So meaning they'll tell a seller, I can get you $1 million.
Right.
So that seller hears that, well, you're my guy, right? They never can sell it for that price.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I think I may have lost my point, but that's usually the same seller who wants to negotiate on commissions.
No,
this and that.
we're asking
So
you.
we're circling back to the reason
Yeah.
you need a real estate agent
Correct.
as opposed to a FSBO, which is a for sale by owner. So
Yeah.
And that just sounds odd.
FSBO,
Right.
I know.
FSBO.
FSBO.
When
It
you
sounds
think
like they're
about it,
making fun of you.
FSBO.
FSBO.
What's really odd about that?
Right. What are you, a FSBO?
No, what's really odd about
Fizz-
that?
FSBO.
FSBO.
It's just a word.
Yeah, but
Weird
who else
word.
would be selling the property? Go ahead.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's all by, right.
The owner's selling.
Right.
Right,
It's
right,
just
right,
no
right.
middleman.
The
Right.
owner, this past weekend, I went to see a house that was for sale by owner because I had a buyer ask me about it, and the seller was having an open house.
Yep.
I walk into it was an awful experience, I have to say. I walked in, I introduced myself, and he said, fine, come in. I just let people walk around. You can just walk around.
Oh, so it was an open house.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this guy had an opinion about real estate brokers. You want to know how I knew that? And I was offended. I never looked at the whole house.
Selling it by himself.
Well,
was
he
probably
said,
the
you know
first
what he
giveaway.
said to me? Tony, you might, I don't know. He said, my wife's jewelry is in the second
Oh
drawer
my God.
in the vanity next to the bed. I thought I'd save you the trouble.
So
my
he's making a comment on
Oh.
He's saying,
right.
you
That's
guys are going to
horrible.
steal my wife's stuff.
Oh,
And I'm thinking, this is terrible. I literally went around and I went out the front door.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
This
And
is why you leave the comedy.
Was it an
to
ugly
professionals.
house?
It was an okay house.
He was
But you
being
know what's
funny.
interesting? My buyer had already gone through the open house.
And taken the jewelry.
And when, no.
So there was nothing left.
When I called him,
and the wife.
when I called him and I said, look, I can't really give you a full opinion. I saw half the house. I said, the guy was brutal. He said, Rick, it's so funny you're saying that. He was awful even to us. We left too. So here's a seller turning people off left
Now,
and right.
what's the price range of this house? This
was high 800, like almost 900.
Oh, my goodness.
Here's a
a
tip.
decent chunk of change.
Here's a tip for the
maybe
buyers out there.
he should look at our podcast
Yeah,
and
he
know that
should.
he's not doing the right thing.
Here's a
You
tip
should.
to a buyer out there. That's the one you want to buy because he's turning off so many sellers. You're not going to be.
Yeah, but
competing
can you
against a lot of
imagine
other-
negotiating with someone like that?
That's the
and
thing.
going-
Nobody would be comfortable enough, I think, to do
I thought you were going to tell us about open house tips there, and you might have some tips if you are doing an open house. You might want to put away the jewelry. I would imagine.
Oh, as a,
Well,
we recommend to
That's
people
what these
certain
guys do.
safeguards.
That's what you guys
Correct,
do is
right.
you coach your client, your
Yeah.
seller,
the medicine,
on
you
what
want
to
to put that
do.
away.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah.
Loaded guns,
sure.
you might want to put
Take.
away.
You want to take all the meds before people come over.
Take the meds.
Yeah, you want to time that perfectly.
And you also want to
This
empty
house
out
was
half your
unbelievable.
half your closet, right? Empty out the closet. So say you're going through a divorce and your husband leaves
Yep.
or the wife leaves, and there's just men's clothes or women's
that's a good
clothes.
point.
Never a good thing.
It never good, right? Because what you're telling the potential buyer is that you're desperate. You
Correct.
went through a
So
divorce.
Kathy's suggestion always been to put the boyfriend's clothes back in there,
I mean,
which is the reason for the divorce anyway.
that's right.
Or if you're a guy, just wear a dress during the open house, because we don't really question that anymore. And
right.
They're my
You're
clothes.
right. You're right.
I notice only women's clothing. They're mine. They are,
Prob-
yeah.
Problem with that?
No, yeah.
None of your business.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see. Nothing to see.
Here's another tip I heard for.
Nothing up my skirt.
Are you done?
What's in his blue cup?
Yeah, go
I
right
know
ahead.
he's having.
I know.
No, go right ahead. I'm done.
We need some of his.
Yeah.
Here's another one I heard on because MLS has all pictures of the houses. Right?
Yes.
I've heard this before where art thieves see what pictures are on the walls in the MLS and they
All
scope
right, you're
out.
scaring now people.
I'm just saying there's a
No,
reason
listen.
they need a broker.
Well,
you
there's,
guys know
there's
this
that,
stuff.
but even worse than that.
Oh,
There
so-
are, you know how
Is there something
Kathy,
worse than that?
It's
Kathy,
worse than
when your
people
kids,
stealing your
when our
art?
kids were little, did you ever have like over their crib? What's your daughter's name?
Emily and Caitlin.
So maybe you have like in these big wooden
Rick,
letters.
You've known her
Yeah.
forever.
Emily.
yeah,
Okay.
you need to
So
take that down.
you need to take that down because a creepy person might see your kid at a school bus and say, "Hey, Emily," and they're
Right.
thinking they know.
Now
We
we're
never-
really
That's a
spooking
big
people out.
We
no.
do
I am
always
not
tell
moving to
them.
this neighborhood.
Yeah. No, I mean there are
Perverts.
things- That's right. There are things you wanna.
So, but
you wanna do.
so then we're going to circle back again. I know you guys hate when I make
No,
us
no, no.
circle
No,
back,
no.
but that's one of a good point is as a for sale by owner, you might not think of those things that
Right.
you do every single day,
Right.
Right?
I mean, Kathy, unfortunately, we do a lot when we're paid well. I'll give you that.
Right.
But we do a
I
lot
saw
of
the
work for
order you
nothing.
just pulled in.
I
with.
know. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of work
The
for
real
nothing
estate
too
attorney has
because
the golf shirt on. Look at him.
sometimes that I used my clothing budget. Did you not?
I didn't get a clothing budget.
Well, now you're letting people know who wanted the eyebrows fixed.
I just want a pocket square.
Wait. So I was
What's
just
that?
Right there.
I taped this one in so that it stays.
I thought it's a
There's
triangle.
cardboard. Yeah.
You can't.
It's a triangle,
Let me say this. I'll start with a pocket.
a square,
If I had
You need a pocket
yeah.
first.
but it's a triangle.
They call them pocket squares.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So what I was complaining about
Call 'em
before
pocket
this
triangles.
tangent was many sellers will call us, me, another broker, 2 of us, 10 of us, many times, and we go and we give them a lot of free information because they ask questions and we can't just sit there and say, well, when you sign a contract, I'll answer it doesn't work that way.
Well, the other thing,
So many times they'll take our tips
Raise your hand.
and then try to still do it on their own.
oh, I see.
So you're
That's
giving them
kind of
info.
bush league.
Yeah,
though. I
right,
wouldn't
yeah.
do that.
So what have we learned in this segment? If you
Then I have
an
to
open-
raise my hand
You have to raise your hand.
if I want to open my
yeah.
mouth and talk.
But practically speaking, if you're having an open house and you're divorced, you wear a dress. Take your kids. No kids ever lived in this house. And then hang up all your pictures of dogs playing catch with Elvis
Yeah.
on black velvet
Yeah.
to keep the thieves away.
Thank you for recapping.
Thank you. That's
Thank
all. I can't, that's what we've got to so far.
Yes.
Actually, you hit another great point.
What? Thank God somebody is, truly.
No.
Wait,
He's recapping
That's what
everything.
we just
Yeah,
said.
you did a good job. You did a
No,
good
he's
job.
recapping.
All
But
right.
you just hit a point there because this is always a bone of contention with me. You
Yeah.
just said they end up signing documents. They always sign documents before they give us a call.
Oh, right.
Or not sign their documents.
Right. So the offer, which is the most important contract in the whole process,
Mhm.
we know this now.
You know
Yeah.
what? Let's clarify that because most people that are listening to this podcast wouldn't even think an offer was a contract.
Right. So
So that's
depending.
our biggest
Right.
hurdle.
Right.
So what you're saying is people don't call you until they're already
Offers
in
already been signed. They're already completed the deal pretty much. Because
Right.
that offer, as Kathy's alluding to,
Is binding.
Then you have to get them out of when they do call.
Well, and
Then
that was
you have to clean it all.
well.
up.
That's our second point. Is Ricardo's very good at it, but it's very challenging, and he always finds a way to get them out of what they signed without his
Right.
okay.
Right.
But
you brokers don't like to have attorneys look at those offers before.
No, I mean I don't mind that, but what I will say is that because you've given me a good opportunity is some attorneys, Rick being one,
Yep.
the days of I work Monday through Friday 9 to
Right.
5
Are gone.
Right.
And real estate, as you know, many times happens in the evening. It happens on the weekends. Times when buyers and sellers are available from their own
Right.
jobs. And Rick, I've texted him at 8 o'clock, and I say, look, I got to have this offer in tonight or first thing in the morning. He takes it.
I know.
So, we can...
Different than a lot
but
of attorneys.
That is...
He gets mad when he texts me at 7 in the morning. He's not my first text of the day.
I know. I'll say, Rick, am I first? And he'll many times he gives me the yes. When he says no, I usually give him the 10 names of who it could be, and I say, get them off.
What if it's
right
me?
now.
But I could go first, right? I could be first.
You could.
I'm calling in sick
I see
today.
a struggle
You
here.
could. You
I see
could
a
be
struggle.
first. You could be first because generally I talk to him once and then you 100 times.
Well, because
Right.
you want something done.
Hey. I might be reading
He's
my
sitting
papers,
right
but
here.
I'm still
Yeah.
listening.
Well, this comes down to we should all live our lives like Teamsters and the old mob guys. Never write anything down,
Right.
right? If somebody asks you a question, don't answer it until you talk to your attorney.
Right.
That's
Right,
just the way it is. And never go to work the same way twice. That's just a little bonus.
Is there-
That's
another-
a safety
That's
tip.
a safety tip.
Is there any rules about envelopes and 2 tomatoes? That's for another show.
That's on board for two
That always works.
We get
Well,
that
that'd
in
be a great name for this
the
podcast.
new podcast. Yeah. An envelope and 2 tomatoes.
It all started with the envelope.
Let me guess who the 2 tomatoes will be. Let's say one and
No, they come from your garden.
those tomatoes. Oh, all right. Okay.
All right, wrap up with...
No, it's like get it a bribe.
I get it.
Okay.
Do you have any ever have any problems with unusual situations in an open house or showing just showing a house? Because you can read those all the time. And I'm not talking about walking in, you always...
How about the ladies that wouldn't leave?
The ladies that wouldn't leave. Well, that wasn't an open house thing. That
No,
was
but
a
that was
seller.
a-
Was a seller who was too attached to their family home. I mean, these are grown, bordering elderly women.
Yes.
Who had to sleep over on the floor for like the last 2 nights of their deceased father's empty house. We're doing a walkthrough, like walking over people.
Sleeping bags everywhere.
Don't wake the owners.
That was nice. But I will tell you a funny open house story. I was doing an open house not too long ago in a split entry. And if you're familiar with the layout, you come in, you can go down or up. So the kitchen is straight ahead. I'm leaning on the counter. As people are coming in, somebody came up the stairs. I walked from the counter to shake a hand, welcome them to the open house. In the elevator. The dishwasher door fell off the dishwasher and slammed onto the floor.
Oh my goodness.
So I just had to kind of, I said, all right, we'll take.
Can I pick it up without anyone noticing?
We'll take $300 off the. So the buyer was kind of, he's good. He said, all right, what else you want to take? Do I dare walk under this light fixture? Stuff falling. So you just never know, what's going to happen,
Right. I know. So.
Sometimes people aren't honest with you. Like you look at the phone number and they write down 5 out of 7 numbers, meaning don't ever call me. I'm a neighbor. I just want to see their house.
Nosy neighbors.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that who usually show up at open houses?
A lot of times, I'm not a big advocate of public open houses. I think there's a certain way to show a house properly. An open house to me is more benefit to a new broker looking to pick up some people.
Well, it depends on what market you're in, right?
Yeah, it depends on the market you're in, the house you're in. I mean, if the house is considered high end for the town you're working in, I
You don't
never
even
want
have
to
to
do
do
an
it,
open
right.
house. Because you get a lot of nosy people. I would too, I suppose. But the buyer for certain houses wants to be there with their agent. They want to be alone. They want to ask questions. They want to linger. They don't want people all over the place.
And it's all it is really a private appointment, right?
That is.
As opposed to an open house.
And that's the buyer who's going to buy a house.
Right. You're making private appointments.
How important is the outside of the house?
Extremely.
Right. Yeah.
It's, as Kathy had mentioned, people nowadays, they do a drive-by quite often before they call us to see the house. If they don't like I mean, you can't change where it is, this or that, but if you have a peeling front door or a hanging mailbox or, dead shrubs out front,
I
it's
thought
a
you
turn
said
on.
a peeling front door, and then I'm like, what's wrong with an appealing front door?
A
peeling, yeah,
peeling.
peeling.
Yeah. No, an
So,
appealing front door.
yeah.
So if that doesn't grab them, Tony,
Lovely door.
they cross it off. You know how they do on those dating sites? I think
Yeah,
you're
they
done
cross
dating,
it.
right?
Yeah.
But
You
I
better be.
heard
Yeah.
they swipe.
They swipe, right.
So
Swipe left,
similarly
swipe right.
with
Yeah.
the house, they're like, I'm
Let-
not dancing with this
Yeah.
house.
Let me
They
say
take
this.
it off.
I got an indent in my cheek from being swiped left so many times.
I thought it was a dimple, Tony.
No.
Oh.
No, that's rejection is what that is.
Wow.
That is the divot of rejection.
Divot.
Oh, maybe we
Oh.
should wrap up on that one. And, we'll
Well, it seems like we've got plenty to podcast about from here on in.
We got a lot of stuff. We got
Yeah.
a lot of new stuff.
And this truly is a real estate house party, guys.
Real estate
We
house
did it,
party
we did
there.
it.
Yeah.
It is.
Thank God Tony's here.
Oh, the music.
Thanks for joining us, Rick Nazzaro.
Thank
Quantum
you.
Union Realty.
Are there
Kathy Holtshouser,
margaritas at this party?
Carter Real Estate
Not
Law.
today.
Tony V. You
Hello.
can check him out
Yeah.
on.
TonyVcomic.com.
All right. If you want any more
Am I giving
information,
out my information?
you give it
Yeah.
out.
Oh, you can call us at 781-944-9222. Ask for Rick.
Or check us out on our website, Carter Real Estate Law. We got a lot more information coming up on the next podcast.
That's
there,
right.
Yep.
And what do you think?
And it's a wrap.
Thanks for having me.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.